jeez. Cow. Oh. Hey, the last time I saw you guys, I had put this dovetail together. It took me 4 days to pop the thing apart. On like the third day, it was starting to move a little bit. And right now, after working another 26 hours, finally came apart. So that's why I love this joint. I mean, a dovetail joint is absolutely superior to anything when it comes to strength. But it also looks really good after you clean it up. I already did this one. If you remember from the last time, this was my right front, and I cut on the left side of the jig. What I'm about to do now is I want to cut all 3 of the other joints. I'm going to try to do it as fast as I possibly can. When I do this, I was going to ask you guys, which piece do you want me to do next? Which corner? I have a choice between the left front, left rear, and the right rear. What is it going to be? Oh, the left rear? Oh, okay. All right. Sounds good. So now, if you remember from the last time, what I did was, I'm going to choose the left rear. I have to get my left rear piece. So there's my left rear. That's the back of it, because it's the rear. The left rear over here, no, it's not that one, LR. LR is over here, yeah, thanks. These 2, I'm gonna cut these 2. Come on, let's see what you remember from the last time. I did all the thinking from the last time. Let's see what you guys can do. Remember there was about 5 or 6 things I listed on the board? First thing I wanna do is I'm gonna take my side piece this time, put my side piece in the jig. First question is, does my left rear go on the left side or does it go on the right side? Of course, it's right there. So I'm going to take my left rear. Remember, here's the LR, that's the riding part. It's going to go up against these locating pins with the X facing out. I take this bad boy, just place it in there. Remember I did this the last time? I didn't tighten it up. I didn't line it up. All I did is just to place it in the jig so I could align the whole thing. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do my left rear back piece because it's the rear. Where's the left rear? I can see it's over here. The X is facing out. I want the riding up against one of these locating pins. So I take it, place it in here, and I'm going to butt it up against this side piece and slide it over, making sure it's tied up against the locating pin and tied up against that piece. So right now, that looks really good. I could tighten this one down first because remember, I'm going to use this back piece to get the exact height that my side piece has to be. I'm going to tighten this down. Now I'm going to loosen the jig, slide this down. The important thing though, folks, is to make sure that this stays up against the locating pin as I slide it down. If you come off, and it's easy to come off, you don't want to do that. You want to make sure it stays up against the locating pin. What I'm going to do is hold that in so it's just up a little bit. I'm going to tighten this, and it does tighten down again. But again, if you could feel this, if you had feel-o-vision out there, you would notice that this end is up a little bit from the surface. Talking about a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that little hammer that I used to hate that I really like now. I'm going to tap this down to try to get it exactly even. And by George, it feels pretty darn good again. Just want to double check that this is super tight because I said if this thing moves, you're done. And that's what's critical. If you do this yourself and set it up yourself, it's absolutely critical that none of these pieces move. The next thing, X is facing out, X is facing out, up against the locating pin, up against the locating pin, left rear, it says left rear, all exactly even. My next thing I'm going to do is take the finger template. I said we're going to take these 2 washers and put them in back of the finger template. And as I said in the other video, the first video with this, all of these adjustments are what I have in my shop. So it could be different on yours, but the basic setup for these dovetail jigs is the same thing as what I just kind of outlined. But I put 2 washers in here because I thought it was pretty easy to do that and pretty easy for the kids to align with. So that there's always a method to this madness. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the finger template down, push it all the way in the back, We're going to tighten this side down just so it's snug. Keep pressure on there. Tighten this wherever it will lay, wherever it lays. And now I'm going to double check that the finger template is flat on this board. Just want to make sure that it's super flat on there. And that looks pretty good. Does it? No, it doesn't. That looks better. When that looks better. Now it's flat. Now I'm all set. I've had problems in the past where people would either hold this down super tight and this side would go up. If that happens and the dovetail isn't going to cut as deep as it should, and you'd have a problem with the fit. So you really want to make sure that this finger template is laying flush down on the surface. Do it the same exact way as I did it before. Remember last time I had my router plugged in? This time, I'm going to plug it in a safer situation, because if I plug this in and God forbid somebody turn that switch on, that thing would be jumping off the table. Always make sure that that router is away from everybody when you plug it in. Same thing as I did before. Roll up my sleeves, pair of safety glasses on, and you're not going to do this by yourself if you're a student in my class. What you always want to do is just tell me, and I will guide it. I'll just hold on to the router, steady it to make sure it doesn't come in contact with the finger template. You'll actually turn it on and actually move it inside each one of these grooves. So I'm going to do it the same exact way as I did it before. I'm going to make probably 3 passes going across, and then I'll go inside each one of those finger templates. The on-off switch is facing me. My cord is over top of the shoulder. And again, there's 2 things that really scare me in this shop: a handheld router and a table saw. My number 2 things. One, I don't know which one is worse, because this is controlled by your hands. And I had a student years ago route for the first time. And after he routed, he was so excited to see how it came out that he took his router and he looked at his board with the router spinning just like this. Needless to say, it was rounded over already, and it always scared me. So I'm going to take this, rest it on the jig. I'm going to turn the router on. I make that outline cut to take off some material. Now we're going to go inside each one of those finger templates. Go back over this, make sure I didn't miss any spots. Sometimes I'll go back over if I feel as though I didn't cut it or it's a super hard wood. I'm going to stop it again with it on the jig, not moving it. And now what I'm going to do, place the router away from me. Again, this is what you would have in your face if your router and your face lined up. And now we'll see how the left rear fits together. I hope it fits as well as my right front, because that fit out really well. It looks like it's going to line up well. The left rear with the left rear. It's nice and even over here. As I said the last time, what I don't want to do is take this and hit it really hard. I always want to use a little backup block. And if I tap this down, and I'm not going to tap this down all the way because I want to cut my other dovetails. But if I just keep on tapping this down, sometimes this might chip out a little bit. If it chips out, it's not a big deal. Usually when you sand it up, you'll clean up that surface. So if I look, I have 2 down. Just by putting it together that little bit, it takes a while for you to tap it off. So here's my left rear, and my right front. Next to last 2, I'll do the left front. So let's take a walk to the left front, which might be a little different. Exactly, because it's going to be on this side of the jig. Just a quick review. The LF is going to go up against the locating pin. The X is going to face out. I'll just place that there, tighten it down. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my side piece. Where's LF? LF is here. X is facing out. Place it up against the side piece. And what I'm going to do is make sure I butt it up against the locating pin. I'm going to tighten this one down because that's definitely where that's got to go. There's a nice tight joint here. It's up against the locating pin. The X is facing out. I'll loosen this up now. Slide this down. Again, a little bit higher than what I want it to be, but still up against the locating pin. I'm going to tighten this down so it's still up a little bit. I'm going to take that little hammer, thank the cameraman for handing me the hammer, tap this down. I want to get this exactly even. Oh, that feels pretty good there. That's a pretty good joint. Tighten this down with gritted teeth, and now I think I'm ready to route. Same way, finger template with the washers in back. It's going to go over top of the jig. Hold it down so it's nice and flat. Tighten this down. I'm going to tighten this side down, just snug. Double check that it's flat on my board. Seems as though it's up a little bit, just like that other one. Bup, 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 bup. That looks better. And now I'm all set. I'm ready to cut this side. With the router still plugged in, safety glass is still on. I'm now cutting on the right-hand side of the jig. So I take my router, again, cord over top of my shoulder, rest it away from the board and away from the jig. I'll turn it on. Took some of that material out. I'm going to go from left to right. I'm going to go into and roll it. And roll it. And roll it. Away from the jig, and I'll set it off. Sometimes I'll go back in there if I sense or if I feel it that it kind of came out when I was trying to go around the edge of that finger template. I'll go back in. It doesn't make a difference if you go back in because remember, this collar is riding in between the finger template, and that assures that it's exactly where it has to be positioned. So on one of these now, this is my back piece, I think. Yep. The X was facing out, right front, left front. This piece is my left front, so that's going there, bump, bump, bump. And again, that's the dovetail that I just cut. It fits exactly even. It couldn't be more perfect. I shouldn't say that because I guarantee I'll screw up the last one. But that's what makes this thing really cool. If I put this other front piece on, when I put this on, my measurement from here to here should then be 5 7/8, which accounts for the width of my top. So that's where I'm saying with all of this stuff, the thinking's the hard part. If you think this through, it really is like a good math problem. Everything is logical. I only have 2 corners that haven't been done, and this happened to be not one of them. This is. And the winner here happens to be my right rear, and the right rear is cut on the right-hand side of the jig. If you remember, I kind of put the side in first. So here's the writing, there's the X. I put it up against the locating pin. It's up against the locating pin. And I just use this to line up my front piece, or that's actually my right rear piece. That's my rear piece. butt that up against the finger template and make sure I have a nice tight joint up against here. And I can lock in that rear piece because that's exactly where it has to go. Loosen this up, slide this bad boy down. Again, up against the locating pin. All I did was I slid it down there. I'm gonna tighten this down. Boy, everybody's on top of things. Look at cameraman giving me my little hammer here. Tap this down, still up a little bit, still up a little bit. That's pretty good, that's not bad. But I'm gonna share with you something that may happen. May or may not, depending on if I went to church on Sunday. Take a look. Remember this was that chip side? You can see that crack right there. That might be an issue. When I go across here, I'm wondering if that is gonna fit into the groove where I'm gonna see it. In that case, it might chip out. Who knows? The only thing I can do is roll the dice and see where it lays. I'm gonna take the finger template. Again, the 2 washers are in back on my particular jig. I'm gonna hold the finger template down, tighten it down. It's pretty flat. I'll position this exactly where it lays. I'm gonna snug this down, still pretty flat. Just wanna double check to make sure that these are tight and they feel like they are. Bop, bop. Just don't like the way that thing is laying. That's not bad. All right, last cut and I'll finish this box as far as the joinery goes. Router, the bit is away from me. Same thing, safety glasses on. Pour it over top of my right shoulder. I hope that piece doesn't chip out. We'll see if I'm going to heaven. I don't think so. Over this because I don't know if I missed any spots. I'm going to shut this off and then I'm going to share something with you. If I'm working with someone, I might get lucky there. Usually there's about 16 or 17 kids in the shop, so a million people are asking me a million different questions. And I want to see if this thing is set up accurately with another dovetail that you already cut. What I usually do will tell the person who's setting up the dovetail that whatever you have cut here should line up over here. So if I look and there's a dovetail, if you notice, there's a maybe about, I don't know, 3/32 of an inch here. When you're making this cut, it should come out to be about 3/32 over here to double check to see if it's about the same. And on this case, this was a little bit even, and I don't know if it's gonna affect this part that might have chipped out. But that's the way you always wanna check to see if a dovetail, quick way to see if this dovetail jig is set up the right way. Let me see how this works because my chip might have, or it might be hidden by the dovetail and it might have worked out. Let's take this, I'm gonna flip this around. It lines up perfectly even from side to side, so this works out really nice. And now I'm just gonna tap this down and we'll see if that bad part looks better than I thought or worse than I thought. I'm not going to tap this all the way down, but if you look at that dovetail, man, they look great. And that chip was over here. I will show you how you can set this up to possibly be the bottom of the box. When we put this whole thing together, not glue it together, but when we're cutting the groove on the inside of this, you have a decision. Do you want to see this side as the top or this side? Even though this is labeled as the left or the right rear, and you're saying, okay, this is definitely the top. If the other side fits better, you might want to have that as your top side. So we have play with the top side or the bottom side when we're cutting the groove in this, but that'll be for a different day. But if I put this whole thing together, do you want to see it all together? What the heck? If you look at that, man, that looks tremendous. That looks really hot. The other thing that people often do is they'll put this side in, and they go to put the front in, and they realize that the only way this thing will go together at the end is that that side has to go in last and has to come out first. So what I really want to do is I really want to put this other side, this other front or back on. Let's see, what part is that? The right front. Is that the right front or the left rear? What is it? Uh-oh, you know what? Time for another pair of glasses. That looks like the left front. So that's going to go, that way it goes this way. I didn't need my other pair of glasses. I'm going to line this up, just tap it. And I'll get my scrap wood and I'll tap this down. It's funny when somebody is tapping this and they're tapping it like over here. I'm like, you want it right on the joint. How cool does that look, man? That looks tremendous. And the last part will be my side. This is my left rear, left front. So it would imagine that it goes left front, left rear. I think it goes this way. I'll line these up. I just want to put it in so it lines up. That lines up. Scrap wood. Like, don't hit it down. I tap it down. Tap this one down. Oh my Lord. Might be going to heaven. If I take a look at this, this box is never coming apart. Do I need glue in it? I probably don't, because this wood is going to eventually swell up a little bit. But you can't get anything that's going to fit any tighter than this. Here's my big question. Big question is this piece together the width I need it to be? How wide do I want it to be? 5 7/8? Because I cut it to 5 3/8. Remember, the whole thing was about this top. That when I put this on here, I should have a 1/2 inch overhang. Uh-oh. What do you smell? I believe I smell victory. 5 7/8. Can you believe it? You know what this means, folks? There is a God. Oh, yes. You're never going to hit the lottery when you buy a lottery ticket. But if you're looking for your second pair of glasses, something's going to tell you, hey, idiot, it's on your head, and that's God. When you want this to work out 5 7/8 because you're only taking one shot of a video and it's got to work out, that's when you know there's a God. So you look at this and I say, hey, it worked out. What's going to be my question for today? My question will be, cutting dovetails? What is this thing called? Where we're cutting our dovetails on. What is that thing called? And it happens to be in our case, a Porter cable dovetail jig. So that's what we're going to make all these dovetails on, is our dovetail jig. Next time when you're in here, table saw, and we'll cut a groove and have a bottom on this thing, sand it up, and then we could glue the whole thing together after it's cleaned up. So we're working on our Porter cable dovetail jig, and that's what's going to give us joints that look as good as these. I hope you guys have as much success as I have had today and continued success with your woodworking abilities. Have a great day, and we'll see you on the table saw next time.